I would like to introduce our second presenter, Professor Roger Hossain from the Department of Economics, Faculty of Social Sciences. He will be presenting on managing the resource curse in a small petroleum exporting economy. Professor Hossain is going to do his presentation virtually, so I hope we can make the connection. Professor Hossain? Is he on? Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, good. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. You know, I changed up the presentation just about 15% for this morning based upon some of the conversations that we had last night. And I think as researchers, we should attend to the most pressing issues in the country in a manner and form that could shed light and help policymakers obtain solutions. Now, as we all know, the Trinidad and Tobago economy has a serious foreign exchange problem. So I took some time and I have been looking at this problem, and I will start off with a conceptual understanding of it. So let the economy be characterized by producing two substantive goods, a non-tradable good and a tradable good. And let the point A represent a point in productive space in 1996, just before the Atlantic LNG Train 1 started. Now, what we had happening after that is that a massive amount of natural gas came on stream, to the extent that the productive capability of the economy drifted from a point such as A to such a point such as B, in which we produce more natural gas intensive commodities like ammonia, methanol, urea, and less non-tradable goods. However, in the passage of time between 1999, December the 3rd, when the first Atlantic cargo was shipped abroad, and about 2015, in that passage of time, what we had was an increase in government participation in the economy, and a change in the structure of the economy and in the structure of expenditure, so that transfers and subsidies increased. And so, because of the influence of transfers and subsidies, the economy moved from a point such as B to a point such as C, where we produce basically the same level of output, but a different composition of the level of output, in where this composition was now one characterized by a much higher level of non-tradable goods. So we move from, say, NT1 to NT2, and a much lower level of tradable goods, and in particular here that will be agriculture, tourism, and manufacturing. So we move from T1 to T3, to T2. But what also happened at about point C is, because of the increase in transfers and subsidies, the labor force participation rate in the Trinidad and Tobago economy collapsed from about 63% down to about 54%. Now, if you have this substantive fall in your labor force participation rate, it therefore means that the amount of goods and services that you produce is significantly within your productive capability, and therefore you compromise your GDP per capita and you compromise the output of your economy. Let point D represent a place in production space at about 2015. Now, what happened at the same point in time when all these dynamics were taking place in the background in terms of the elevated labor, the elevated transfers and subsidies, and the decline in the labor force participation rate, is that natural gas production started to decline in the Trinidad and Tobago economy, and at the same point in time, we had an increase in the inflow of Venezuelans. As a consequence, these two changes, one, led to a decline in the amount of tradable goods we could produce, particularly LNG, ammonia, methanol, urea, and goods of that nature. And secondly, because of the majority of Venezuelans were unregistered, many commentators say we have about 120,000 Venezuelans here. Let's call that 60,000, and only about 16,585 of those 60,000 are registered, So the majority are unregistered, and unregistered workers tend to work in the informal, non-tradable sector. So you are a change in the structure of production again, from a point such as D to a point such as E. So currently, where we find ourselves in the Trinidad and Tobago economy, as compared to the point B, is with a much decreased tradable sector, T3, a much elevated non-tradable sector, NT3, and therefore a change in the structure of the economy. And this change in the structure of the economy is mirrored by the change in the structure of employment, the change in fiscal capacity, the change in the structure of exports, and as a consequence, the change in our external debt relation. I'd just like to verify that you all are hearing me.
Yes, we are.
Okay, good. So the challenge now, where we find ourselves as point E, we really want to get to a point such as F, where you are producing much more tradable goods and even a smaller amount of non-tradable goods. I mean, we don't necessarily need cranberry, blueberry, raspberry, strawberry. We probably could do with 2 berries, but we don't need 8. We probably don't need some of the finest cut meats coming out of the USA. Yes, we probably need some, but we don't need that vast amount. Because the honest truth is that if in 2010 we produced 4,400 mmcf per gas per day, and in 2024 we are producing about 2,600 mmcf per day, then the economy is in a different position. The economy cannot sustain the consumption habits of 2010. But you know, as James Dusenberry said in 1948 in the relative income hypothesis, consumption has a built-in momentum and it is difficult to reverse. So we find ourselves in 2024 with a much depreciated or a much lower level of export revenue earning and a much higher or persistent inertia in our import consumption habits. That's not a good combination. And it's something that we clearly need to look at in a structured way as we go forward. And I think that's where the Faculty of Social Sciences can make an important contribution in this coming year. And I would say it in a joking form, I see the principal awards, which I attended for the first time, have an opportunity for a team to take part. And I think that it's an excellent place for the Faculty of Social Sciences to present some, in one solid format, a block of information to help improve the foreign exchange situation. Now, the foreign exchange situation is not bad, it's terrible. Our external debt increased considerably from 2010 to 2024, and the net official reserves has collapsed to the extent that the difference between them now is about $150 million when you take external reserves minus external debt. And one of the things that policymakers have not paid ample attention to is that the ratio of employment in the non-tradable sector to the non-energy tradable has increased. And that's exactly what you don't want. You want your workers to be registered and working in the non-energy tradable segment of the economy so that they generate foreign exchange. And the labor market is in turmoil. If you look at the labor force participation rate, it's down to 54.7%. So I never really look at the unemployment rate again. I mean, the unemployment rate is meaningless to me when you have such a low labor force participation rate. The economically inactive population has increased drastically, and persons with jobs, if you look carefully, you would see that has fallen as well as the labor force, whilst there has been some increase in the unemployment level. Now, in terms of output, I mentioned earlier that the structure of the economy has changed, and here we see the ratio of non-energy, non-tradable to the non-tradable output. And what you want is that this ratio to actually be improving, decreasing, and here we have it improving. Now, if you look carefully at the horizontal axis, you would see that as the structure of the economy changes in terms of non-energy, non-tradables, the external debt increases, of course. If the Venezuelans are here and they are working in bars and casinos and all these different kind of places where a lot of Johnny Walker, red and blue and green, whatever colors you have, is being purchased, the external debt would rise in the sense that because we have a skewed structure of production and a skewed consumption pattern, we would therefore, in the context of inertia in imports and falling energy revenues, have to turn to external debt to balance some of our fiscal relations. And here you see, as the structure of the economy turned in favor of non-energy, non-tradables, you have the stock of reserve declining because we are not producing enough goods and services to add to the stock of reserves. In fact, on a year-by-year basis, we have to draw them on it. So the clear problem is the structure of production. And unless we register these Venezuelans and improve the labor force participation rate, we are going to come back here the next year, the next year, the next year, the next year, and be saying the same thing. And the stock of reserves, like external debt, which is about 150 million now, will in the next 2 years definitely go into negative, and the situation is going to become substantively compounded. And all of this data is easily and freely available on the central bank website. Now, I did a lot of calculations to extract the contribution of the Venezuelans and where they were and what they contributed to the tradable and non-tradable sector, and I have published this and put it out in the public domain. In terms of how we can move forward, one of the things we definitely can do is to take a deep dive look at the intra and extra CARICOM trade patterns, calculate our comparative advantage in each of these markets, and see where there are low-hanging fruits using analysis such as TradeCan, which can tell us our missed opportunities where people in Guyana and Suriname and the extra-regional market are buying more, but we are producing less for whatever reason. We could look at it scientifically and therefore reduce the probability of error and increase the probability that we would be able to meet our targets when we put resources in particular areas, low-hanging fruits. But we have to do the homework and we have to go in there and get the substantive technical work done. In terms of export potential at the intensive and extensive margin, we could look at what commodities other countries of a similar nature to Trinidad and Tobago are exported, but we are not exporting. In other words, what we should be exporting, but we are not exporting, and look for, say, the top 25 commodities in that category, and make it available to groups like, say, the TTMA, the Chamber of Commerce, the Businessmen and Businesswomen Association, and use that as a means to help increase the probability that we can fetch foreign exchange by supporting natural winners. We have signed a series of partial scope trade agreements with Venezuela, Colombia, Chile, Curacao, Guatemala, and other countries in recent times. And I'm saying that once we look at the trade intensity, collaboration, and the trade complementary indices with these countries, and we look at the deep level of the trade data up to 6-digit data, we could work out, not leave it up to chance, not leave it only up to the free market. You know, when the difference between the stock and reserves and external debt was 6 billion, you could leave things up to chance. I'm seeing the difference between
2 minutes.
You now have to build on top the situation, the mathematical economics, and therefore reduce the probability for error. We recently got the geographical indicator for steel pan in Trinidad and Tobago, and I think we should build on that and do a market assessment and get some opportunities there for foreign exchange. You know, and a lot of people talk about import substitution, but I did the numbers, and we cannot import substitute more than 9% if we include the refinery, and more than 2.5% if we exclude the refinery. And therefore, this is something that we need to put work in. You just don't implement barriers and tariffs and squeeze foreign exchange. You have to have a scientific understanding of where your import substituted potential resides, and therefore how you could counterbalance it by not imposing excess deadweight loss on the economy. And if you look here at the data in terms of remittances per capita, it's very unfortunate that we have such a low amount of remittances per capita, and this is a very low-hanging fruit. If we do the homework and we introduce items and options such as diaspora bonds, and other relevant instruments through which we can fetch more, more remittances per capita, then we have a considerably better chance of fetching up to $500,000 US, I will call the numbers, through this avenue, but we need to put in the hard work during the next 3 months. You know, there is a quote that a French philosopher made in 1564 by the name of Charles Baudelaire, and he said that men of a fat and fertile soil are most often effeminate and power, whereas contrariwise, men of a barren soil are by nature vigilant and industrious. I am looking
Professor Hossain, your time is up.
okay, all right, well, I'm on to my last slide, and my last slide simply says there are a lot of opportunities in tourism as well. So I thank you for the opportunity to present. I believe that where we could benefit from some extra Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Hossain. What an interesting presentation. Give him a round of applause. We have 5 minutes to field some questions, so kindly raise your hand and we can come with the mic so that we can capture your questions to Professor Hossain. Anyone? Yes, we have someone at the back.
So thank you, Prof. Hossain, for such a good presentation. I just wanted to ask, I saw your slide on the contribution of the Venezuelans. Are you suggesting that if they are registered, that they will provide an increase in the GDP of the country?
Professor Hossain, did you hear the question? Can you repeat the question, please? I'm not sure if he can hear.
Hi, can you hear me?
Professor Hossain, are you able to hear?
No, I'm not hearing.
Okay, okay.
Hello?
He's going to repeat it.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, good enough.
All right. I was asking if the Venezuelans were registered, if you think they would make a more positive contribution to the economy.
Okay, so that's one question. Do we take them in batches? Are there any other questions?
Any other questions? Yes, we have a couple here, so you can answer this one while we...
No problem.
Yeah.
When the Venezuelans were registered, it increases the probability that they will not work in the informal, non-tradable component of the economy. It increases the probability that they will be able to move about much more freer and therefore not have to hide and be careful where they work and come up in the radar and not have to go in the back room of bars and casino and construction sites. So what we do then is we change the probability in favor of the tradable component of the economy to the benefit of Trinidad and Tobago. As it stands, where they work, and if you look at the data tracking matrix of the Institute of Migration, you would see that they corroborate what I'm saying. But where they work is principally up to 87% of them is in the informal, non-tradable sector, and that's exactly where we don't want them to work.
Okay.
That's just exactly where we need to move them out.
Thank you so much. We'll field another question.
Okay, good morning, Prof. Can you hear me?
Can you hear him?
Can you hear me, Prof?
Professor Hossain, are you able to hear the question?
Oh, this person is talking very soft.
Okay, I'm going to bring my mic just in case. Can you speak a little louder?
Yes, Prof. My question is a follow-up. Oh, try that one. A follow-up on the previous one regarding the Venezuelans, and I mean a lot of them are apparently in the gray or the black sector. So how do you get statistics on that? And secondly, your presentation is about the resource curse. So I was wondering, do you subscribe to that hypothesis or not? Thank you.
I didn't get those questions, you know. I heard it.
Oh my God.
I'm going to guess as to which sectors
We don't have time.
we should push. What I would say is this. I'm going to say we have something called a classic Brzezinski problem here, where you have an increase in one factor of production, and that increase in one factor of production is pulling capital out of the tradable manufacturing and the tradable export agriculture and the tradable components of the services sector that help it boom. And so if you look around, you will see an increase in places that Venezuelans work, but it comes at the expense of expanding the tradable component of the economy. And given the state of the Trinidad and Tobago economy, every sentence basically has to be, good morning, principal, what are you doing to earn foreign exchange? And I can see reasonably well until 2035. And it's going to be rough. So the university in that context, I saw we spoke about some products yesterday called sealant and whatnot. The university in more and more ways, we have to see how we could put out ideas and suggestions and products that help generate foreign exchange. Because from the numbers that I know and I see until 2035, it is going, if you think it is rough now getting 200 US at the counter, next year you will get 100 and probably the next year 50.
Okay.
In my understanding of the facts, it is going to get even rougher.
Thank you so much, Professor Hussain. Okay, thank you so much. Now, we have a lot of questions for Professor Hussain, but what I would say, we need to meet him at the Faculty Social Club and pose some of these questions to him. But a fantastic presentation. Thank you so much, Professor Hussain. Now I'll invite my co-chair to introduce our third presenter, Dr. Afonso.